Welcome back, crew. Today we're doing another Star Wars build. Why pay the Star Wars tax? We're making these $3 Frisbee generators. Let's get right to it. So we're going to process these caps. I got some pill bottle caps and some small juice caps here. We're just going to glue these down to some cereal cardboard here. Use the capillary effect so we get the best we can. And then process all that material down. So we're just adding a flat base to glue all these things together at. Oops, that one didn't glue. That's okay, this will be just fine. Score it up so it glues better this time. Part of the reason I decided to do this project is because it dawns on me that the generators that we've all done are the little bubble tape container ones. Look great. Lots of people have done them. It's kind of a rite of passage for us as scratch builders to do one here. And a bunch of us have videos on them, including myself. So I figured those were too small because the ones in the movie are enormous. They're generating a shield to cover all of Echo Base. So just using one of my flexible rulers here to try to get a nice line to follow here, trying to get it as close to centered as I can. Now, before I started putting out a video every week, I would develop a project and work out all the details and figure out all the little kinks, and then I would film a precise tutorial that shows you how to just do it without any errors here. Well, with my new production schedule, I didn't have the chance to do that with this project. So it ends up giving me a couple little headaches as we go, and you'll see those as we go. But in the movie, these things were enormous, right? They were giant, and I feel like a proper shield generator that would prevent a orbital bombardment would be huge. So this ends up being 5.5 inches tall by the time it's all said and done. So just heating up the corners there, I think that's the thickest plastic, using that masking tape on there as a means which to help prevent it from sharding on me. It still goes a little awry. And that's why it doesn't end up sitting quite flat. So we had to do some things to fix that later. So my favorite little punch here, this is a tag punch I got at a thrift store. Helps me produce wonderful little doors. I have a video about that. There will be a link in the description. And a bit of corrugated card. This is just not regular paper. I had this larger stuff in my collection here. It was some packing material, I think, here. And I thought the larger corrugation would look good at this scale. Just cutting off that working material, lining it all up, shaping it a little bit so we can get the glue on here. So not only did I have that minor issue of the Frisbees not always cutting straight through the half, but this step produced a couple of different variations that made them not exactly the same on all three of these kind of ribs I'm building, these kind of donuts here. But that is something that I'm sure if you had a little bit more time than I did and just kind of went through a little bit more slowly, you could probably control with some effort. Let's go ahead and glue the inside there just to reinforce that, make that as strong as possible for all of the handling it could potentially get on the table.
As I'm working on this, it dawned on me that you could use essentially the same thing to make skyrise buildings, alien kind of structure, or I don't know, maybe the Camino style cloner facilities. If you want to see me try to build some other weird thing with some Frisbees, comment Frisbee below. In fact, I just saw the Mandalorian Grogu and I thought maybe I could use this for the Kwanzaa Hut X-Wing garage.
See, there's the ribs I had made, the little spine I had made, and it was too wide. Medicine lids, too small. Two juice caps, however, just right. That's Goldilocks right there. So bust off the ones that I made before. And ultimately that's what's going to be between them here. So I'm going to take a bit of the foam core board to build a flat bottom piece to help make these things more sturdy and give just one more layer of detail, one more thing to make it look like an industrial complex and less like just a couple of Frisbees knocked together. Various kinds of materials, it's better to take multiple passes than to try to just hack through it in one. And then of course the sharper the blade the better. Yeah, that's going to be great. Rounding out the edges. And then having it sit on the desktop, adding some glue here. This could have been hot glue. I just had this on hand. And then just pivot that up so that it sits flush on the table, and then repeat that on all of the pieces. I'm trying to figure out what I want on the end here. Layer some caps. And nothing quite works, so we're just going to go for one of the medicine lids that I'd prepped earlier on.
Psst. Have you subscribed yet?
Alright, so we're going to move on with some craft foam here. I think this was a little bit more than an inch, not quite an inch and a half. I'm just going to make a couple of pieces for some additional cowling to go around the edge of the bottom from foam core board to foam core board. So we're just going to, get in here and cut this, and again the sharp blade. The sharper the blade when cutting foam is better. That way you don't get some jagged weird tears here. See, here's Frisbee shattered on me, whole piece went flying. Next to a figure, it's giant, so we're just going to cover that. And this is where I end up having a problem with my memory card, and the next bit of footage is missing. So what I ended up doing was using some hot glue to pull that on there, and then with the hot glue you can stretch just a little bit as you're gluing it on there to get a nice clean piece, and then a top and bottom piece as well. Using a abandoned garage sale sign keeps the cost on this low. That's the overall big base. Just gonna knock that on there real quick. So this base coat is really just going to be an initial protection of the softer parts here. The paper gives it some protection with that Mod Podge. And then the edge of the foam core board and the craft foam. Scrape off on the Frisbee. And then we're going to do a primer coat of black with just a little bit of a white right down the center on that here to try to imply some source lighting here. Going back in with some white acrylic just to make sure that's as bright as it can be all in that area. Some gunmetal silver here. We're just going to do a little bit of dry brushing, starting with a kitchen sponge. I'm going to move on to a makeup sponge here, just a little bit here. Starts hitting the high spots on these things. And even with a brush to get some of the edge highlighting just right to really make some difference in the height of those things. To help with that light effect here, I'm going to try a little bit of this kind of turquoise color, and I'm not sure I got this to work just right here. I'm still kind of learning this trick myself here. And then just a little bit on the edge of the Frisbee here, and I did go back in with my airbrush and just dance on all of that with a little bit of white to clean it up. And now here, just a silver Sharpie to work on some of the Frisbee details itself. Detail I didn't have to make. And that's it. You could go further with the paint job, add some rust, you could add all kinds of rivets, and just wanted to hand out this idea to you right now since Frisbees are easy to find. Please subscribe. Thanks for hanging out. Have a great day.